In a world of David Warners, be a Chris Woakes. Sad news for England fans this week. Actually, not just England fans, the whole world of cricket, because Chris Woakes, the gentleman cricketer, has announced his retirement from international cricket. My name's Liam. I'm a cricket fan who makes cricket content for the fellow cricket fan. If you do like this video, please hit subscribe. It would mean the world to me. I wanted to talk about Chris Woakes today because not only is he a legend of the game and he's someone that we're all going to miss watching on the international stage a lot, he's also a bit of a personal hero of mine. And I'm sort of coming to the realization with this news that, you know, I'm at the age now where my cricketing heroes are retiring, and that's a little bit sad. I grew up on kind of, I guess like the 05 Ashes series was kind of my first introduction to cricket. What an introduction it was as well. So those guys are my heroes, but my first tangible hero, the first guy that I could physically see across the boundary, was Chris Woakes. And I remember watching him, I think it would have been 2008 when he kind of broke through properly at Warwickshire. I would have been about 12 or 13 then. And I just loved him. He was my hero. I loved what he did, and I was so excited that Warwickshire had this young, promising player. All of the older guys down the cricket, like my granddad and all of his friends, they were excited about him. And there was just a buzz knowing that he was going to go on to have such a great career. So it feels weird now, me watching him in his late 30s, retiring from international cricket, knowing that I was not a part of it, but I was there at the start of it and kind of, you know, saw all the potential that he had and have been lucky enough to witness him sort of fulfill that potential, really. So it's a weird sort of week for me, as I'm sure it is a lot of other cricket fans. I actually sent him a message many years ago. I know it's going to sound like a strange story, but this is way before the days of kind of like internet safeguarding, and younger viewers won't get this at all. But back in the day, you could just find celebrities and sportsmen on Facebook, like their personal Facebooks. And I did this when I was about 11 or 12, sent him a message. He was young as well at the time. He was just breaking through, but sent him a message basically just telling him that how much I liked him and he was my hero and he makes me want to be a cricketer and I love watching him play. And there's a high chance that it wasn't Chris Woakes and it was some random bloke sat in his basement pretended to be Chris Woakes. But either way, whoever it was on the other end responded and just said thank you for your support. And it's only a silly little thing, but as a kid, a young cricket fan, that meant the world to me. And in my head, I'm still believing that's Chris Woakes. So where do we begin with Chris Woakes' career and where will his legacy stack up, I suppose, as the years pass on? He broke through in 2008, was his proper sort of breakthrough year at Warwickshire, averaging 20 in the county championship, which you can see exactly why everyone was just so excited about this new young man. And he's gone on to play 57 test matches for England, nearly 2,000 runs scored. He averaged 26 with the bat, 100 750s, 181 wickets at 28.24. He's played 122 ODIs, 1,500 runs there, 23 batting average, and 173 wickets at 30s, and plenty of T20 matches as well. I think maybe the kind of the lazy or the unfair way to look at his career and sort of, you know, sum up Chris Woakes would be looking at those kind of figures that he would get away from home, because we all know that Chris Woakes has famously been a better bowler in England than he has been overseas. I mean, looking at his averages for England, he averaged 21 away from home in test matches, but 51 he averaged 51 away from home, but 21 at home in test matches. So it's always been an issue for Chris Woakes playing abroad, as it has been for a lot of England bowlers, actually. It's why we traditionally haven't done so well when touring different countries. But I hope that isn't what's sort of, you know, tied to his name, and it's not what people remember, just the fact that he wasn't a great bowler to have in an away squad. Because really, you know, that away average just makes his overall average even more impressive. The fact he averaged 28 in test match cricket with a ball, but went at 51 away from home is pretty impressive in its own right. He's the perfect bowler for English conditions. He just, if you could design a bowler that would suit the English game, you'd probably design him very similar to Chris Woakes, and that's why he has such impressive numbers at home. I think the best thing I can actually say about Chris Woakes is forgetting his cricketing ability for a moment and actually just talking about how great a bloke he is. You know, he is like the gentleman cricketer for England. And I think, you know, if you got an Aussie and you got an Indian cricket fan, let's say, and said to them, go through that list of England players and tell me which one of them you don't like, they could pretty quickly go him. In fact, I could probably do the same. But I think you'd really struggle to find someone that would select Chris Woakes in that list. He kind of is universally liked from the whole cricketing world, really, which is why it's going to be such a shame that we're not going to witness him on the grand stage anymore. He's kind of the perfect embodiment, I think, of how cricket should be played. You know, he plays with ability, he plays hard. You know, he's got a bit of edge to him when he's bowling. You know, he'll still give a little bit to the batsman, but ultimately he'll be shaking hands at the end of the game. He'll have a smile on his face. And I just hope, you know, obviously we're going to hopefully see him a lot in county cricket now for at least another season, if not more. But I hope after that he remains on our screens and he becomes part of the punditry team that we see on Sky or something like that, because he feels like he's too good a personality to not have involved in the game. When it comes to his legacy, it's an interesting one because there's two ways to look at this. You could say he was very lucky to be part of a bowling attack which featured James Anderson and Stuart Broad. But on the other hand, you could also say he's very unlucky because that's probably led to him being severely underrated. You know, when we look back on this era of English cricket, you know, I mean, I'll certainly always think of Chris Woakes, but I think the vast majority of people in the history books will probably tell more of a story about James Anderson and Stuart Broad. And rightly so, taking nothing away from those two. Those are freaks of the game. They are some of the greatest bowlers cricket has ever seen. But it's a bit unfair on Chris Woakes because he's probably going to feel, you know, a little bit left out in that sort of ranking because of how good those two are. Where if Chris Woakes played in a slightly different era, in fact, if Chris Woakes was maybe coming through now and he was sort of breaking onto the scene now with England's current bowling offering and went on to fulfill the same potential, you could argue that he would have a much greater legacy. So it's a blessing and a curse being involved in that England attack that features Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson. I wanted to look at a few moments which stick in my head as sort of Chris Woakes' greatest moments in an England shirt. So I've picked out 5 which really sort of resonate with me. The first one I've gone for actually is back in 2011 when he was still sort of making his breakthrough for England. This was an ODI series in Australia at Sydney, and he took 6 for 45. I think this was only his 4th ODI appearance, so he's still brand new on the scene, obviously doing very well with Warwickshire, a lot of hype around him, but he came into the team and took 6 for 45 against a very good Australian batting lineup as well in Sydney, which is never easy to do. And I think that really, you know, although that's not as grand as some of the other moments on this list, it kind of announced him on the world stage, I think, and I think was a sort of a real catalyst for where his career went to. Number 4, I've gone for his performance in the 2019 World Cup. I'm sure if you sat down with Chris and asked him his career highlights, sort of winning the World Cup would have to be up there for him. Of course, that was a wonderful campaign for the whole England team. That will remain a sort of, you know, a pristine moment in history for England cricket fans. That squad they had at that tournament. And a lot of people will talk about, you know, they'll talk about Ben Stokes, they'll talk about Josh Buttler, they'll talk about Jofra Archer when it comes to that tournament. But Woakes played a vital role in that England setup and ultimately them winning the tournament. He was the second leading wicket taker in the tournament with 16 wickets. Sorry, England's second leading wicket taker with 16 wickets. And in the final at Lords, he bowled superbly well. He got Martin Guptill early. He got Henry Nicholls as well. And he just set the tone early on for the rest of the innings, which I think is so typical to how Chris Woakes kind of operated. He wasn't always the hero. He wasn't always the one taking all the headlines and all the spotlight, but he played a vital role for the team on that day. And if you take Chris Woakes away from that squad that won the World Cup, England don't win the World Cup. At number 3, I've gone for his performance in 2016 versus Pakistan in the Test series there. He took 11 wickets in this game, including 6 for 70. England lost the game, but I think why I've highlighted this game for me was because, you know, it showed a different side to Chris Woakes in that he could actually sort of lead a bowling attack. We hadn't really seen that from him at this point in his career of being the sort of the main bowler in a lineup, and it kind of gave us a bit of hope that sort of, you know, when Jimmy Anderson does retire, when Stuart Broad does retire, that Chris Woakes can kind of take up that mantle as the leader, the senior bowler in the attack. So it probably, you know, the fact I put that above a World Cup win probably sounds weird, but I'm just talking about in terms of the journey of his career. I think that Test match at Lords in 2016 was a real pivotal moment for his development and sort of the leadership qualities of Chris Woakes. At number 2, I'm picking his performance in the 2023 Ashes, in which he picked up player of the series, particularly at Headingley, where he scored 32 not out, which sort of steered England over the line in a really intense run chase there. But he also took 19 wickets at 18.25 in that series. He only played the last 3 tests, but it just shows the impact that Chris Woakes had on that series. So that gets my number 2 spot. And at number 1, I'm going for the Lord's Test versus India. Pretty obvious one because he took 11 for 102 across the game. And then, of course, he scored his maiden Test century of 137 not out. I was rewatching that innings recently because, again, just as the news broke, I found myself, partly for researching for this video, but also just reminiscing myself, watching some of his old innings. And you don't realise at times how great a batsman Chris Woakes was. We'll talk about his bowling, of course we will, because that's what we remember Chris Woakes for, but he was more than just a guy down the order who could bat a little bit. He, his technique was solid. I think, in another sort of parallel universe, he could have easily been a genuine batsman for England. So he hit some very important knocks over the years, but nothing will beat that Test century that he hit versus a very good Indian attack as well. Now let's talk about his send-off, his final game, because a lot of people I've seen on social media saying, I kind of wish he got a send-off like Jimmy, when we knew it was his final game, or I wish he took a wicket with his final ball like Stuart Broad did. All of these different things. And yes, of course, those are the sort of fairy tale endings for anyone in their Test match career. So we would all love Chris Woakes to get the ending like that. But actually, in a strange way, I kind of feel like Chris Woakes' final game for England was the perfect send-off. Now, I know we lost that game, and I know he was strapped up. What did he do? Dislocated his elbow or whatever, his shoulder. He was in a lot of pain, stumbled down to the crease, and that isn't the fairy tale ending. And if he sort of wrote his book at the start of his career and said, how do you want to finish your career? He wouldn't write it like that. But I actually think it really epitomises Chris Woakes as a cricketer. Again, he wasn't flashy. He wasn't fancy. He wasn't a Stuart Broad who's going to get the fairy tale wicket in his final Test match. He wasn't Jimmy Anderson who has the big celebratory finish. He was Chris Woakes. He was the unsung hero. He was the guy almost in the background at times, but playing a vital role. And he was a team man. He was a guy that would always put himself on the line for his country. And that's exactly what he did in that final game against India. Now, yes, the fairy tale would have been he goes out to bat like that, he hits a beautiful cover drive with one shoulder, and we win the game. It wasn't to be. But for me, everyone's going to say that wasn't a great way for him to end his career. I think it was a nice way to end his career because it really epitomises not just Chris Woakes the cricketer, but Chris Woakes the person. So what is next for Chris Woakes? Well, as a Warwickshire Bears fan, I'm hoping that he will be playing lots of cricket for us next year. We've long missed a bowler of someone of Chris Woakes' ability. And actually, you look at that Warwickshire team at the moment, he kind of fits in perfectly. So hopefully he is available for lots of cricket because that would be fantastic for us. And if he does get back to Warwickshire and plays lots of county cricket next year, I was kind of having a look at our potential bowling attack. And I think, could Warwickshire's bowling attack next year be the oldest ever in the county championship? I'm not saying that old is bad or this is by any means a bad bowling attack, but you potentially now got Chris Woakes, who is currently 36. He turns 37 in March. So for the majority next season will be 37. Chris Rushworth is still in there. He's 39. He's 40 in July. Oliver Hannon-Dolby is 36. And you've got Keith Barker also returning to Warwickshire, who is 39. So a weird year for Warwickshire because you've got two legends of the game in Woakes and Barker, or two legends of the club, back at the club. The bowling attack looks good. It just looks very old. That's got to be a record, hasn't it, of the oldest bowling attack in county championship. I'm going to have to look that up because it feels like the Bears could have taken that crown. So in summary, a bit of a random video, really. I kind of just wanted to come on today and just, start the camera rolling and just talk about Chris Woakes because, as I said at the start, he's someone that means a huge deal to me, and I know there'll be other England fans who are in a similar boat, and, he'll probably kind of quietly go away from the game. He won't have the sort of the heraldry that Broad and Anderson will get, but he is a vital part of England's bowling attack, or has been a vital part of England's bowling attack for many, many years now. And I think he's one of those players I do think people will understate just how good he is. And I feel very privileged to have been able to watch him from when he was first breaking through at Warwickshire to now at the end of his international cricketing career. And hopefully he can replicate the form of 2008 and take another hatful of wickets at 20 next year. Would be brilliant, and maybe Warwickshire might have a chance of winning Div 1. We'll see. If you like this video and you like Chris Woakes, please hit like and subscribe. I'm not going to hold you to ransom to hit subscribe just if you like Chris Woakes, but if you did like this video and you want to see more content, then hit subscribe. It means the world. Thank you so much.